The Armenians have been living in their homeland since history first began, as resilient as an ancient tree. Then, in the spring of 1915, the tree was felled. The annihilation of a race was an act for which no word existed. Even now, the true name of genocide is silence. On September 3, 1915, the silence was broken by a single man. Appalled by reports of the atrocities, U.S. Ambassador to Constantinople, Henry Morgenthau, sent out an urgent request for emergency relief to save the lives of Armenians and other nationalities uprooted in the Ottoman collapse. On September 16th, Near East Relief was born. Under the leadership of James Barton and Cleveland Dodge, and with the support of the American people, Near East Relief built a vast network of refugee camps and orphanages, served by volunteers from all across the United States. By 1930, $117 million worth of aid had been provided, and 132,000 lives saved, in the greatest humanitarian effort the world had ever known.
This degree of international philanthropic relief and intervention of sorts in a catastrophic human rights drama that was happening 8,000 miles away was something new.
It was an example of the basic philanthropic impulse in the American people. It suddenly rose up with this Armenian genocide. But it's been fairly well forgotten, I think. I don't know how many people would have any knowledge what it was.
1915 was just the beginning. In the aftermath of the deportations, an entire nation was homeless. Faced with the need to raise millions of dollars to rescue the survivors, Near East Relief waged a groundbreaking publicity campaign to rally the American people to the cause.
The Near East Relief broadcast of the Armenian massacres story was perhaps larger than any human rights representation has ever been, international, I should say, representation has ever been in modern American history.
Before long, the Armenians had gone from a people nobody had ever heard of to a household name throughout the country.
Clean your plate. Think of the starving Armenians. My mother said this to me and my brothers every time we sat down to a meal. And that lived in my mind ever after. That's the first thing I could remember her saying to me. Clean your plate. Think of the starving Armenians. Now, I couldn't have been the only person in the United States who had that experience.
All of America was mobilized, from Park Avenue to Main Street. Citizens young and old and of every faith and denomination answered the call, sending clothes, food, money, and prayers for a far-off people in need. An integral part of the Near East Relief campaign were its posters, dramatic images of damsels in distress, designed by leading graphic artists of the day, decorated buses, trains, and billboards across the land.
I think, like all good advertisers, the creators of those posters understood that they were appealing to certain core values in a popular Protestant American culture. This was a moral appeal, a national appeal, a Christian appeal, and they were very effective.
The iconography of the posters reached the silver screen in the Hollywood blockbuster Ravished Armenia, produced by Near East Relief in 1919. The film was based on the memoirs of Aurora Martiganian, a young genocide survivor who played the starring role herself. Sensational and provocative, the movie opened to acclaim in cities around the world, spearheading a drive to raise $30 million. Jackie Coogan, one of the biggest child stars of the 20s, became the public face of Near East Relief. Fresh from his success playing a ragamuffin in The Kid, Coogan led a children's crusade to send milk to the real orphans across the sea. Legions of young fans lined up with cans of condensed milk as the price of admission to his movies.
Near East Relief was able to seize a child celebrity to create an appeal. So you're seeing the mobilizing of entertainment and celebrities and modern media happening here. It's a very fertile moment in our cultural history.
It's a rare poster. I have not seen a copy of this before.
Almost a century later, the Near East Foundation has rediscovered a trove of archival material illuminating the forgotten history of Near East relief.
This is great stuff. I mean, it opens up a whole bunch of new doors in terms of research. Each one of these people have a story. Each one of them maintained a diary and their own letters, and there's hundreds, if not 1,000, pictures of relief workers in here.
In partnership with the Rockefeller Archive Center, the Near East Foundation has launched a major new initiative to preserve and expand the collection.
As we began doing work and doing research, stories upon stories started coming to light. We were finding people from all sides, from the Armenian side, those who were descended from survivors, from the relief workers' side, and it was much to my surprise that so much of this material still existed.
The Near East Foundation Archives is really a hodgepodge of a variety of information about the foundation and its activities. There are letters from the presidents, there are reports to Congress. There's a great variety of documents, many of which we're just beginning to realize as we go through the collection. So there's, I think, wonderful discoveries to be made.
It's a goldmine of archival material and of a whole rich American history that is surfaced in small bits but needs increasingly a larger exposure.
To explore the Near East Foundation archives is to journey into a past one never knew existed. The collection tells an epic story, an odyssey of two nations, one ancient and one young, brought together by a tragedy that would shape the destinies of both. The German missionary Johannes Lepsius, the guardian angel of the Armenians, has left us a precious glimpse inside the sanctuaries of the Near East relief, from the Polygon orphanage of Alexandropol to the bird's nest of Beirut. These were the cradles of a new Armenia, born in the ashes of the old. One of the most valuable treasures to have emerged from the archives is a handwritten manuscript by students of the Sahak Mesropian Armenian School in Trabzon. Written in impeccable English, the anthology of short stories and poems captures the reflections of 9 young men coming of age in the orphanage.
These texts give us both an insight into the nature of the orphanages as institutions of refuge following genocide, but they also give us a lot of insight into the trauma of survivor experience. Here's a piece by a young boy named Gegem Husisyan. We, the orphans, are gathered as the children of a same house and as brothers. Yes, we treat each other as brothers, but every one is from the native of a different town, a child of different parents. We had all before 5 and 7 years ago. We had our fathers and our mothers, our brothers and sisters, and now deprived we are, unluckily, of them. And we have to enter this orphanage for food and education. Young Gegem Husisyan is reflecting on the misery from which he's come and the kind of almost indelible pain of being an orphan, of having had a family and now having none, of having had a hometown, now having none. They've lost everything, but they're starting out. Again, there's some way they've been given a new chance. And that's, of course, one of the great legacies of Near East Relief.
The foot soldiers of Near East Relief were the volunteers. Men and women from the heartland of the United States, devoted to saving a people they'd never met. Through their legacy, we see them not merely as relief workers, but as mothers, fathers, and friends to the thousands of children they fed, healed, and educated.
When you read their letters, when you read their journals, when you see their pictures, there's a whole different story that comes to light. It's a personal story of the courage that these people had. Many of them were 19, 20, 21 years old.
It's almost humorous or pathetic when you think of Americans who are about college age going over there and discovering Armenia and making something that's available to our historical knowledge. It fills in a gap. We didn't know much about what was going on in the Near East.
The volunteer experience is captured in the private letters and photographs of Nellie Miller Mann, a young Mennonite from Indiana who served as a secretary at the Bird's Nest in Beirut.
She kept copies of every single letter that she typed up for all her colleagues. And all of those documents she kept throughout her life in a little box and passed them on to her son.
A generous gift of the Mann family to the Near East Foundation, the collection provides an intimate picture of daily life in the orphanage. We meet Menno Schellenberger from Heston, Kansas, who died of smallpox in Diyarbakir and lies buried in an old cemetery in the hills. And we follow the happy childhood of little Azatuhi. Found starving during the deportations, Mann poignantly describes her rehabilitation and the maternal love that she inspired.
These documents need to be carefully archived and put in a database because there's a very rich, deep human rights history there, an American history there.
That's the guts of history. That's the small details that make up the historical story.
If there's more of this kind of material in the Near East Foundation archives, then there's so much to be learned.
History is as perishable as the people who make it. The archives of the Near East Foundation preserve the memories of individuals and the lives they saved. In their faces, we see our grandmothers and grandfathers. Looking closer, we see ourselves. Forgotten in vaults and attics, their voices are silent. Now it is for us to rescue them.